this is something we've been building on for a long time. Been waiting to see it. I was that guy. I sent out a tweet to Mike saying, "Hey, I apologize for possibly thinking the Ducks couldn't do it or couldn't get it done." I was one of those wait and see guys. I hadn't seen it yet, and so especially against Ohio State, hadn't seen it yet, and so I was surprised, but at the same time, I was also not surprised with what we've seen in their practice and what we've heard from this program over the last couple of years, that the level of recruiting has gone up so much that now we can compete as a team. The Ducks can compete on the level of Ohio State, and they went out and showed it, man.
No, man, I thought it was great. I thought one thing that was really big for this win is with, obviously Saban's been coaching a long time. A lot of coaches seem to be on the hot seat, like coaches at LSU. Clay Helton just got fired. I feel like this is just another reason to help keep Mario Cristobal. It was a huge win, and it proves that he can win here. Like, now he's like, all right, I can win here. It was just another huge block to keep this program going in the same trajectory it is. And that's probably our biggest win since that Florida State game.
I agree.
I would say the Pac-12's biggest win since UCLA beat LSU, though, because that was pretty big for the Pac-12 in notoriety when it comes to nationwide perception, at least from what I've seen.
I think it ranks a little differently. I think the Florida State game was so important because of where it stood in the history books of that first college football playoff, that first 14 playoff, being at the Rose Bowl and not having it be the last game of the season for the winning team. This is stuff we'd never even seen before. And that game, the Ducks showed up so masterfully. It kind of got, overshadowed a little bit a week later when, Ohio State goes through with Ezekiel Elliott in the fourth quarter. You can't stop them, and they win by 20. So looking back on that was a win we didn't really get to celebrate for a full year like we would normally. And I think that takes a little to shine off of that win. But I would agree, this is the biggest win since that. And going back into Oregon's history, I think this is one of the biggest wins, if not the biggest win of them all.
I'd put it right behind the pick.
The pick as a play, yes. But being a guy who was in that stadium when that happened, I was a junior in high school when that happened. That was a year that, that Rose Bowl was something we never thought we'd go back to. So a regular season game against a conference opponent at that point was the biggest game. I think moving past that, I think the Joey Harrington era Colorado win in the Fiesta Bowl was a big one. I think going over that, I think going back to a conference win was the USC game on Halloween night. I think those are all games that kind of stepped the forward progress of the program up. And you got to a point where it felt like after that Auburn loss with Chip Kelly against Cam Newton, that where else could you go but up? And you're only going to take a step back. We took a couple steps back there and got back to the national championship and took a major step back. And so this, by the fact that this is against Ohio State, the team that beat us in the national championship, that really took us off that peg, to get back to that is tremendous. I mean, I can't say it enough how good it feels to be an Oregon Duck fan right now this week. Yeah, I actually think that anybody out of the Pac-12 that's going to get to that 14 playoffs got to run the table. I feel like there's the deck stacked against the league. Although this does do a huge bit to help with that. I think to Mike's point earlier, that UCLA game helps a lot too, just because of LSU being where they've been in the last 3-4 years. Now, they're not the team that they were, granted, and coming off that hurricane, they weren't in a great spot, but you got to win these non-conference games. And I think Colorado beating Texas A&M would have been another huge step. They played them tough, but until you start getting these W's as a Pac-12, I think the rest of the country has something to say about the conference being a little bit weaker. And the Pac-12 needed Oregon to win this game so bad.
If Washington wasn't so abysmal, it would have been better for us too. Washington was what we all expected.
Well, the way it stacks up right now, and I'm going to produce a video because I ran all the numbers on the Power 5 conferences through 2 weekends against each other, and it's not even close. The Pac-12 numbers are the worst. They are just the worst top to bottom. But the saving grace is to win the 2 that are the most important, and especially the 1 that is the most important. Sure, it'd be great if Colorado beat Texas A&M, but Colorado's not going to do anything substantial. If Utah would have beat BYU and these other games, yes, for compiling the numbers and the records are good and the narrative across the board. But in terms of trying to push that one school, that one team, which Oregon is obviously that team right now, to the top, to the elite, that was the game to win. And the Pac-12 got it done. Oregon got it done, I should say, in representing the Pac-12. So regardless of, and right now the Big Ten otherwise is playing extremely well outside the conference, still has some big non-conference games. The Big Ten could be evaluated, as it probably will be, to be a better conference top to bottom than the Pac-12, but this could turn out to be a tiebreaker. If you've got two 11-1 teams, Ohio State and Oregon, regardless of what anybody thinks, you have to give Oregon that playoff spot.
Especially considering how Oregon won that game. I know the final score was a touchdown, but Ohio State, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't have a lead the entire game, and Oregon controlled the trenches. That it never, there were times where it's like, okay, is Ohio State about to come back here? But there was never times where the game was completely like, oh, okay, Ohio State's about to win this game. Like we had control of the game for the entire game, and that's not just a win. I think that is huge.
I think going toward the model that everybody's looking for, that 4-team playoff, and every game is set up for that. That now they're in the driver's seat. You just got to win out, and you're there. I do think that this is an absolutely humongous game for the Pac-12. But you're right, Mark. I mean, the top end of the Pac-12 is fairly decent, but the bottom half of it is not. And they didn't show up in the games they needed to show up in. You're right. Another thing about Colorado or Utah, they might not be going to that national championship game, but we just need every single Pac-12 team to start winning, just to stack up as many teams as we can in the top 25. So we have top 25 matchups to get those records to go up as much as possible, because we do actually have also that extra game that we're going to count one more loss against every other, or at least half of the Pac-12 is going to get one more loss because we play that one extra non-conference game comparatively to other conferences. So, this is a big deal. I look at it through the lens of what if it comes down to the wire and Clemson and Oregon are in the same boat, you're going to look to this game. This is the game that's going to be the separator and compare it to the Georgia game. And I think Oregon has a better win than Clemson would have on their schedule. But if Oregon were to lose a Pac-12 game, then they would have the worst loss of those two. So it's a dicey situation.
Well, if they lose to that UCLA team and they still win out, it's still not a terrible loss.
True. If it is to UCLA, but if Utah tacks on another couple losses and you lose up there late or whatever the case may be, I'm hoping for the fact that Oregon at this point is in the position they're looking to be for the last 2 or 3 years with the recruiting classes. We've been talking about this point right now in the schedule. This game, if you win it, this could be trajectory wise, a huge deal for the Ducks. And if they're able to just hold on and win out, I think they're right there at the end. Now, their gift at the end, if they do win out, might be to play Bama in the first round, which wouldn't be great, but it is what it is. The Pac-12 needs a representative.
If we win out,
14 playoff, we just need it.
If we win out, we won't play Bama. We'll play the 3 or 2.
You're right. You're probably right. They'd probably slide into the 3 spot. Yep, or the 2, maybe even the 2 spot if crazy other things happen.
Now, if we lose that UCLA game, then we go get to play Bama.
Or you're on the first wave out and you go back to the Rose Bowl. Yeah, either way, it's going to be a hell of a year. This has proved a lot for, like you said, I think it's going to keep Cristobal in town. It proved the fact that their culture has shifted. They controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides. I was very impressed with the Oregon defensive line. I thought that was going to be a tough matchup against what I thought was a superior offensive line at Ohio State. But the ball bounced the way they needed to. It was not a fluke win at all. Like you said, the Ducks were up the entire game without their top starting 2 defensive players on the road. Everybody knew what was happening in this game. Everybody had scheduled this game and circled it for months and months and months. And when they played it out, that first TD drive was a 99-yard drive. I heard guys in the post game, Buckeye fans in post game saying, if you let a team go 99 yards, you don't deserve to win. Well, they did that on the first touchdown drive. So that says a lot about the Oregon Ducks right now. And I would have to say another topic of discussion is people are pretty happy with Anthony Brown right now.